I'd like to welcome everybody and definitely say thank you to all of you that have joined us today. It's always great to get together and discuss ways that we can help our students as they continue to learn coding. Now, before we dive too deep into the webinar, I'll mention that if you haven't already done so, please follow us across all of our social media channels. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at CodeMonkeySTU. You can also get valuable updates on CodeMonkey's Facebook page, as well as our CodeMonkey blog, which you can find on our website at CodeMonkey.com. And if you wish to live tweet at us today, during today's webinar, you can do so using the hashtag CodeMonkeyWebinar, and we will do our best to answer any of your live tweets. I have a team with me today, so I'm not alone, which is good news. And we're all here to answer any questions that you may have. I do want to ask that if you have a question, please drop it in our chat box or in our Q&A, so that way everyone can see it. And then lastly, I'll let everybody know that we will be sending out information regarding your PD certificate directly following the webinar. So please look out for that in your email. All right, so for those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Mark Dozier. I am part of the customer success team at CodeMonkey. I joined the group at the start of the school year. Prior to that, I spent the last 16 years as an educator. I started as a 5th grade teacher here in Texas, a 5th grade science teacher, before moving on to Chicago, where I worked as a technology director, as well as a computer science teacher there. I did mention that I had friends with me today, so I do want to introduce or allow 2 of my amazing colleagues to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lena Saleh. I am the Professional Development and Sales Manager here at CodeMonkey. You can reach me at lena.s@codemonkey.com, or you can live tweet at me today at Lena CodeMonkey. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm a former educator as well. I spent over 10 years in the classroom, and now I'm just very passionate about delivering computer science to students.
All right, thank you, Lena.
Hey, I'm Jay Bloodworth. I am the curriculum developer here at CodeMonkey. Like Mark, I'm pretty new to the company. I've been here for about 6 months now, but have had a good time. Before that, I worked for 20 years as a middle school teacher here in South Carolina, mostly math, but also a computer science course that I designed myself. So that's kind of the role I'm in now, writing the computer science curriculum for CodeMonkey.
All right, thanks, Lena and Jay. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that it's my hope that when speaking with you all today, that we're going to be able to provide everybody with the confidence that you're going to need to effectively teach our game creation courses. And then by accomplishing that, the goal is you're going to allow your students to really take off and show how creative they can be. So with that, let's get ready to write code, catch bananas, and save the world. All right, so taking a look at our objectives, you can see the areas that we are going to cover today. We will explain what is included in the Game Builder package. I'm also going to define what we mean by game creation. We'll explain why we use it after Coding Adventure. Then we'll get into the first parts of Platformer, which is one of those game creation courses. We'll also explain what Game Builder is and when you should use it. Then we'll show you guys some examples from students that can be found in our Discover tab. And then as always, of course, we will leave time at the end for your questions in our Q&A session. So which courses are we referring to when we say game creation, Game Builder? Which courses are part of that Game Builder package? So here you see that game creation is composed of 3 tutorial-based courses, Platformer, which we'll cover today, Frogger, and then Sprite animations. And then over to the far right, you see Game Builder, which is a standalone platform. It's a sort of a sandbox style where the kids can just create from the ground up. Now with Platformer, your students are going to learn the fundamentals of game creation by building a game that's very similar to Super Mario Brothers. They're going to be introduced to game mechanics, such as keyboard events and timers. In the Frog course, students will learn how to program a touchscreen game as they build a game that's very similar to that arcade classic Frogger. The course will also teach them how to program a game that utilizes the swiping motion that you're going to find in a mobile or a tablet setting. And then with the Sprite animation course, your students are going to learn how to create and basically bring to life sprites that can be used in the games that they create. And then all of this culminates with our game builder platform, and that'll be the place where your students are going to take those game creation basics and then hopefully wow you with their own games that they've made. All right, so what is game creation? So perhaps you've noticed in my course description that I use the word create a lot. I use it very liberally. And having taught elementary and middle school computer science, I think we all can agree that it's really important to have that component. And also from a buy-in view. So it's not just teacher says do this, I do this, but now we're getting into I learned this, let me show you that. So to do this, in game creation, what we need to do is we need to give them a peek under the hood, okay? So we want to introduce them to the building blocks and these game mechanics, then bring them to a point where they're ready to pair that knowledge with their creativity in the game builder platform. So why do we use it after we complete Coding Adventure? And so this is done because Coding Adventure is going to establish a really strong foundation for them. It's going to be a base level that will allow them greater success in game creation. Also, there's going to be concepts that are introduced at the end of Coding Adventure that are expanded upon at the very beginning of game creation. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we will get into game creation by starting with the first lesson of Platformer. Now, technically speaking, you could start with any of those 3 game creation courses, but I chose Platformer today primarily for, as I said earlier, the similarities to the Super Mario Brother games. And your students are actually going to instantly recognize the connections between the two, so it's a good jumping off point. Now, in case some of you are unfamiliar with where the lesson plans can be found, I'm going to point out that you can find them under the teacher resources. So here, this is your teacher homepage. Under the teacher resources, I have lesson plans. And if I scroll down, I find the Game Builder package, and you see here, Platformer is the first one there. Also, with these lessons, you'll see that they're very similar to Coding Adventure in the way that they're structured. So the lessons are basically broken up into 3 parts. So you'll start with your introduction, and it usually includes objectives and components. So the components, just think of those as the concepts that are going to be learned. Part 2, let's scroll down a little bit more. So part 2 will include the playtime. This is where the students will actually explore the lesson. And then of course we end with part 3 with our debrief. So in Platformer, I want to point out that you will have 7 lessons, and each of them is designed for about 45 minutes. All right, so to jumpstart this Platformer course, we're going to use a very cool and engaging Unplugged activity. And Unplugged activities, hopefully you know by now, are these critical pieces in each of our CodeMonkey lessons. And at their core, they allow you as a teacher to break down what can sometimes be a difficult concept into something that's relatable and easy to understand. So this particular Unplugged activity that we're going to show you guys today is going to serve as an introduction to a major concept that you're going to find throughout game design. And that concept is this concept of event-driven programming. So I know it may look a little complicated, but honestly, what I can tell you is it's not. On the left, what you're looking at is the way that students are sort of used to thinking about coding, at least up to this point. So you have lines of code, and they're going to be executed in order. Now on the right, what you're seeing is this new concept of event-driven programming. And the idea here is that a computer program, as we know, is a set of instructions telling the computer how to process input and deliver a certain output. An important part of that programming is telling the computer when to perform a certain task. So events are a way to trigger certain instructions. So let's dive into the unplugged activity. So as you can see here, the materials and preparation needed are going to be pretty minimal. You'll need 2 sets of colored index cards. The first color, and in our example here, we're using the color red, will be our designated event cards. And on each event card, you're going to write down one of 3 events, such as cross arms, clap hands, or pat your head. The other color is going to be for your handler pile. Now, each of these cards is going to need a conditional statement, such as when someone crosses their arms, I'm going to take a knee. Or when someone claps their hands, I will say Jumanji. Now, to help you guys understand how this is going to work, I actually do have a video that was filmed at our CodeMonkey studios. So let's get to that.
רגע, מתחילים?
תעשי עוד פעם.
אוקיי.
עשיתי.
ג'ומנג'י!
All right, so I don't know if those guys are going to be winning any Oscars anytime soon, but they did a great job. So what they've done here is you have to start by distributing those cards face down, and then you form 2 lines. One line's for events, the other line is for handlers. Next, you want to go down the line one at a time, having each student perform the action that is on their card or the command that's on their card. Then your handlers are going to react based on the behavior that they saw in the events line. And then maybe after one time down the line, you can switch roles. Events will trade with handlers. There's also an opportunity here to have the students maybe rewrite the code just to see how, maybe the first time when a person folded their arms, I jumped up, but now someone rewrote the code and now I'm going to turn off the lights or something like that. Now, if you see any holdouts, if you still have holdouts as far as buy-ins with the students, even after that activity, then I promise you, if you show them this, this activity, which is actually taken directly from the lesson plan, it's a short video, and we kind of use it to show students the possibilities. We're going to show them what it is we hope to get from this platformer course. So I'll go ahead and play a little bit for you guys, and this will be something that you show the kids. And again, this is directly from the lesson plan, so it's easily accessible for you as a teacher. All right, so watch out for the tigers and chocolates. Oh, I see a tiger. I'm also old school and I need more of a PlayStation controller. All right, so there, what we saw was a lot of those elements are going to come into play. We saw a timer, there was objects, there were good guys, bad guys. And in the times where we've shown this, we've taken our visits to schools, this is really what gets the students going. So the job for you is to get them calmed down and get ready for the beginning of the lesson. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jay, who's going to guide us through lesson 1 of this platformer course.
All right, yep. Let me get set up so you can see my screen and we'll get going with this. All right, it should be there for you now. So this is lesson 1, which is going to encompass the first 5 exercises of the platformer course. And I want to go through these fairly quickly, introduce you to what the screen looks like and all the elements that we're using here, but also explain a little bit of the computer science and coding concepts behind what they're doing, what your students will be doing. So let's look at the screen. We've got basically 3 columns here. The column on the left is where the instructions are, and then at the bottom it has a little checklist where the steps are broken down. Some of these exercises have multiple parts, and students can check them off as they do them. In the middle is where the students will actually write their code. We're going to focus in this discussion on just the code area up here. There are these buttons down here that can be used as shortcuts for typing, but we're going to do it old school today and just type in the words by hand. Then on the right, we have the game screen at the top. That's where we'll actually play the game when we press the run button, but also where we can design the game by moving around the elements and adding things and things like that. At the bottom, there are some tabs for controlling different aspects of the game, adding new sprites, adding widgets, sounds, and modifying the game. For these 5 lessons, exercises, we're only going to see the Sprite tab, but later on in the course, we'll have opportunities to work on the other tabs as well. So let's go and get started with the first exercise. As was mentioned, these elements that make up the game are called sprites. Sprites are basically just little pictures, little characters, and objects on the screen that interact. So the background here is not considered a sprite because it doesn't really interact with anything. Later on, we're going to encounter tiles that are not sprites. But sprites are the parts of the game that do things. So in the simple version of the game we're starting with, the sprites are the monkey and the banana. Later on, as you saw, we'll add chocolate and a tiger and some other little power-ups and things. For right now, just the monkey and the banana. The thing to understand about coding games is that when you write code, it is always associated with a particular sprite. So right now, in this exercise and the next ones, we're going to be writing code that is attached to the monkey sprite. You can see that the editor up here has the monkey showing that that's what we're editing. So let's look at what this code does or needs to do. So Mark talked to you about event handlers. Event handlers are used for responding to events. Events are things like pressing a keyboard key, clicking a mouse, things that happen in and outside of the game's world. So here we're creating an event handler for the monkey sprite called onKey. onKey is built into the Game Builder platform. It's a special property of a sprite, and if the sprite has that property, then that code will be executed when a keyboard key is pressed. Now let's talk about this @ symbol for a second. This @ symbol is special notation in the CoffeeScript language we're using that says this property, this onKey, is part of the monkey sprite. So this is the monkey's onKey function. Later on in the course, you may have to refer to other sprites inside of the monkey's code, and there's different notation for that. But for referring to the monkey's own code, it's the @ symbol. So the onKey property of the monkey is set equal to, and this notation here with the parentheses and the arrow, that creates a function. And this function takes an argument, an input called key, which is going to represent the actual keyboard key that is pressed. We're not actually going to use that argument in this first exercise. We'll use it in the next 2. So when a keyboard key is pressed, we want to do something. What do we want to do? Well, if we read the instructions, we want to use this function that's called step 1. That's going to make the monkey take 1 step forward. Again, the @ symbol means this belongs to the monkey, so it's the monkey that's doing the stepping, not the banana or anything else. And 1 step may not seem like much, but this code's going to execute over and over again as long as you hold down the key, and so that will move the monkey quickly enough. So I've done what they said to do. I can check it. It's happy. I'm going to press run just to see what happens. So here's the monkey. Now if I press any key on my keyboard at all, the monkey steps forward as long as I hold the key down. And oh, happy day, he found the banana. So we have solved exercise 1. Moving on to exercise 2. So one of the things we'll see is the exercises build on each other. So everything we talked about before is still here with a little bit more. Because just having the monkey only be able to move forward, that's not much of a game. We want to have some ability to control what the monkey is doing. So now we're actually going to use this input. Remember I said key is a code that represents the keyboard key that was pressed. And so in this line of code they've already given us, we're using an if statement to test to see if that keyboard key that was pressed is equal to keyboard.left is a symbol that stands for the left arrow key on the keyboard. The double equals is important. The double equals is what's used to check to see if two things are equal. Okay, if you use just a single equals, the program would not work. So if the key is the left keyboard key, then we're going to step -1. Well, this is not too hard to understand. Since stepping 1 moves the monkey to the right, stepping -1 moves the monkey to the left. We want the monkey to be able to move in both directions, so let's add the possibility for him to move to the right again. So that's going to be if key double equals keyboard right, obviously. And then we're going to use the same thing we used before, step 1, because that moves the monkey to the right. And we'll check that. It's happy with us. We'll press run. We can see the monkey can move both to the right and to the left. And there he managed to make his way to the banana once again. All right. Lesson exercise number 3. Well, Mark told you that this is a Super Mario type game, and one of Mario's biggest tricks is he can jump. We want our monkey to be able to jump so it can get to this banana that's hanging in the air for us. So we've got our old code from before, move to the left, or if the keyboard key is the one to the left, move backwards. If it's the right arrow key, move forwards to the right. And if it's the up key, this isn't right. We don't want the up key to move the monkey to the right, which is what step 1 does. We want the up key to make the monkey jump. So let's change this to this new function, jump. Now notice that this time there's these parentheses, empty set of parentheses, open parentheses, and immediately close parentheses right after jump. That's because the jump function doesn't take any inputs. So the step function takes an input, how many steps to take. The jump function doesn't. And in CoffeeScript, if a function doesn't take any inputs, you have to use these opening close parentheses right after it. But that's all we need to do to modify the code here. So we'll check it, and we'll run it. And then the monkey comes over here, and he jumps up, and he got the banana one more time. All right. These next 2 exercises are not really based on coding. In addition to the sprites in the game world, we can make it more interesting by adding tiles to the game world to create stair steps and challenges and things for the monkey to move around on. To do that, nothing in the code window. Instead, we're going to come over here to the game window and use the paintbrush icon. And we can choose any of these tiles we like. I'll keep using the same one. And then just paint some extra tiles on the screen to make it easier for the monkey to get up there to the banana. So I've already done that. I should be ready to go. Just run the game. And the monkey should be able to climb up there, these new steps, and get the banana one more time. All right. And then one more quick challenge before we finish up with this. In addition to the paintbrush, there is an eraser tool here. So we see there's an obstacle. All these tiles have been put in the monkey's way. So to make this challenge solvable, we need to erase these. Now, obviously, in designing an actual game, you wouldn't add tiles just so you could erase them later, but you make mistakes when you're designing or putting the tiles on the screen. So the eraser tool is used for removing those. So now the monkey has a path. We press run. And he's got the banana. So we've gone through those pretty quickly. If you're doing this in a classroom, it's probably going to take your students a little bit longer. but if they will read the instructions, you see it's pretty much step by step, and they should be able to get through these exercises almost as quickly as I let you through them. But let them take the time to kind of learn and digest the computer science as they're playing. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mark and let him continue the presentation.
All right. Thanks again, Jay. So with the time that we have remaining, I want to get to the part, the meats and potatoes of game creation. This is the part that, and I know many of you consider yourself the most popular teacher in your school based on the nature of what you teach. But if you're not already, you for sure will be the most popular teacher once you begin the game builder part of our course. So game builder needs to be assigned to your students for them to access it. So if you have a question on how to do that, just make sure you leave us a comment in the chat, and then someone will answer that for you. All right, so let's imagine for a minute you've completed the entire platform course. So what have you actually done? Well, what you've done is you started by using the lesson plan video to kind of hype them up and show them what it is that they can make. You're showing them the possibilities. Then through those exercises, the ones that Jay just walked us through, they've learned how to make those games. And by this point, when they reach Game Builder, they're going to be able to showcase what they've learned and then again, combine it with creativity. So as their teacher, I find that this is a perfect way to assess their progress. Another reason that you're going to find that this is the ideal next step after coding adventure is for those of you that like to see collaboration and creativity in your classroom, then get ready because it's going to go through the roof once you introduce Game Builder. And then honestly, if you forget all those other bullet points there, just know that your students are going to love Game Builder because it's just plain and simple, a lot of fun. So this is a good question. When should you assign it? And to get the most out of Game Builder, I strongly suggest that you complete at least one of the game creation courses, if not more. You definitely want to set your students up for success, and we believe that this is the best way to ensure that. All right, so you may be wondering where you can find Game Builder. So for those of you that have not accessed it already, from your teacher homepage, you would scroll below your classrooms, and then you'll find the platform in the creativity section, and here it is, Game Builder, create your own games. So you'll start by clicking on create games, and then the green start coding button here. So here, I see a couple of options, or a few options actually, for a game template. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose the default platform because I'm gonna choose default because the other 5 actually have pre-written code in them. So it's a small amount, but it is there. And if I really wanna dive in, I really wanna drive home the assessment aspect of this platform that we have, I think it's best to have these students start with a blank slate. So let's go ahead and start. Okay, so the first thing I want to do when I get to the Game Builder is I want to just take a look at the layout here. It's pretty minimal, right? The left side of the screen is going to be divided with our code editor, taking up the most real estate, and then we have some buttons and tabs sitting just below that, still on the left side. Now you can find the stage on the upper right, and our design and object tabs in the lower right. Now staying on the right side of the screen, I want to point out something that's a relatively new feature that's going to be so helpful to everybody that's listening today. Now, I know the term game changer can be overused, but this is like a literal game changer, right? So here, next to my avatar, what I have are reference cards. Now, these reference cards will allow students to refer back to the concepts that they've learned in the course, and they'll also be able to see example code. So I'll actually show you how that looks here. So again, you know, we're saying here's a blank slate, but we don't want to leave them out to dry. So here are some of your training rules, if you will. You can also search for content in our search bar here with the reference cards. And then the last thing I want to point out here on the screen is our save and share buttons. You definitely want to make sure that your students are aware of the save button to maintain their progress. So those are next to the green run button at the top of the screen. Okay, so let's see how this process works. So right here, I'm being asked to add a sprite or widget to start the game coding. So I'll do just that. And I'll keep it simple for the purposes of this webinar. We'll just do monkey, and we will add a banana as well. So we have 2 sprites. And again, Jay went over some really good information, but maybe I didn't keep a technology notebook, or maybe I didn't write this down. What I can do is refer to the reference cards to sort of kickstart what it is that I want to do. So I remember he said something about an on key, and then when I search for it, I get the definition as well as an example. So I'm actually going to give myself a shortcut, copy the example, paste it. And then again, this is a very rudimentary game, but just to give you an idea of how this would look. So there it is. I'm on my way here a little bit, right? Okay, so I talked about saving and sharing, and I do want to walk you guys through the process of sharing a game that you've created. So I'll click on the share button here. So when a student decides to share or create a game, they're going to encounter this pop-up window that has a couple of options. So you see I can just make it private. You know, my game is very early on in the early stages. I don't need to share it with anybody. I could also share it with my classroom, and that would be my CodeMonkey classroom. So only those 20 to 25 students will be able to see that. I can also get a link, and that link could be copied and pasted into a browser. I could possibly email it to my parents. I think some schools have embedded it in their school homepage, but that's an option as well. But also, at the bottom here, I see the option to publish it. So with this, I'll go ahead and click on that. So I want you guys to keep in mind that any game that's shared will be vetted by us to make sure that they meet our community standards. So you can sort of see here sort of the guidelines that the students are going to be held to before their game is actually posted online. All right, so to view the games that have been shared throughout the CodeMonkey global community, we're going to use the Discover tab, which is located on the homepage. So you see it there next to My Challenges. Now I'm going to take you there as well. Backing up a little bit, before a student publishes a game, you want to make sure they give it a name. So we'll call this webinar. And then the instructions and description is pretty optional. It's optional right now, but again, getting back to what we talked about assessing, you can tie in literacy, you can tie in the fact that, hey, it's just comprehension, right? If I can explain how to do something, if I can clearly give directions, then I've showed that I have a mastery over this content. So in my case, I'm just gonna say, feed the monkey, avoid the bad guys. And then I click publish. Okay, so we were getting into the Discover tab. Again, it's right next to My Challenges. So here, when you get to the Discover tab, you'll see all the games that have made it through that vetting process that I just described. And in addition to playing the games as they are, so let's just kind of show you a little bit of those. So in addition to playing the games as they are, you also have the option to remix games, which will sort of allow you to add your own slant to the games. I also want to point out there's sort of a social element to this as well. You can see how many times this game has been played. You can see how many times people have liked it. And we think about the population that we're teaching. and those students in those age levels, that's kind of, you know, where they are in their environment these days. So that's another great piece that I like to point out. All right, so as we wrap up today, I want to take a look back at the ground that we've covered. We discussed our Game Builder package, which courses make up that package. We explained when to assign it. Jay walked us through that first lesson of Platformer. After that, we took a look at creating our own games using Game Builder. And then finally, we looked at the Discover tab to see where to find games that have been published by CodeMonkey users from across the globe. All right, so I think that that is a great place to stop and open the floor to everyone that's here. So with that, let's go ahead and begin our Q&A.
So we had one question, will this webinar be offered again? At this time, we do not have a scheduled date, but we will be sending out the webinar after today's live viewing of it. So to make sure that you also have that on hand for any note taking or anything that you need to take as far as that goes.
Thank you, Lena. Do we have any other questions? All right, so if we don't have any other questions, I want to thank everybody for their time. And again, like I said, the PD information certificates will be emailed out to you guys, as well as a recording. Thank you, everybody.
And remember to write code, catch bananas, and save the world. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.